2A on your hat? Oh. That's the county. That's the county.
No.
County. Anyway, it's some type of place.
I'm sure there is. Adam?
Well, there's even Adam, so there has to be.
It must be a 2A. Yeah. It can be interpreted as well.
Yeah.
How was your teacher? That night? You were going.
Yeah. They've added a 16 for the expanded distribution.
Really?
I've seen that there.
I always ordered the same thing.
I have been there. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission Hearing Examiner on February 9th, 2021. We serve in both a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity to the Mayor and City Council and County Commissioners. There are two types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. Our recommendations are then forwarded on to the City Council and County Commissioners who make decisions on legislative matters. The second type of public hearing is quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. We are authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, and plan unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision we make tonight is by no means final. Anyone that believes he or she has been aggrieved by our decision has the right to file an appeal to the City Council, County Commissioners. On quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexation, we are authorized to only make recommendations to the City Council, County Commissioners, City Council, I guess I can just say City Council, who will make the decision. The hearing procedures are as follows. Staff will first present a reporting application. The applicant or applicant's representative will then present the summary of the request. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by testimony from those in opposition. And finally, we will allow the applicant or applicant's rebuttal. After the rebuttal testimony is given, public testimony is closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed unless the members vote to reopen testimony. Time limit, applicant 10 minutes, in favor 5, neutral 5, opposed 5, rebuttal 5. We accept oral and written testimony from those in attendance, but only if you have signed the sign-up sheet available at the front of the room. When testifying before us, you must come to the podium, state your full name and address, and be prepared to be sworn in. One final note, if you are here tonight and you are angry, that's okay. But please don't take your anger out on us. There are times when it is difficult to remain apart from the emotional testimony, but we are charged by law to keep a clear record of the proceedings, consider factual testimony, and to stay within the city's rules and regulations. We thank you for your courtesy to us and to others as we move through the process. Please remember that when you testify, state your name and address and acknowledge that you've been sworn in. So we'll do roll call. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Do we have any disclosures for conflict of interest or site visits? So I have one disclosure, which is I have worked with Providence Properties on a project. So I've had some business interactions with Patrick. All right, so can we have, do you want to swear in everyone together?
swear or affirm that the testimony shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, so the first item is to approve the minute, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 20th meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes of the October 20th, 2020 meeting.
I second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Nelson and a second by Commissioner Harmon to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, so we'll go with our new business. Case number OA 2004. Case, a request by the City of Caldwell Planning and Zoning Department amending Chapter 10, Article 2, Section 1002-16 of the Caldwell City Code, updating business permit code to allow for business permit renewal. To the staff report.
Yes, Katie Phillips, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. The intent of this change is to improve the ordinance and to include a renewal process. It will assist emergency services for business location, and if there are any changes to business processes that will be able to be identified by the fire department upon renewal, we will be able to identify what businesses are in Caldwell and track them for tracking purposes. Eventually, we would like to provide the public and our business community a business directory. The fee for the initial business permit is $100 and the renewal fee is $25. The permit is to be renewed annually, 1 year from the date the permit is issued. So that's basically the intent behind the proposal, and I'll stand for questions.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Yeah.
So,
I'm trying to scan through if I'm changing.
can you share, kind of the antecedent to needing this, of why it's needed, to this new process?
It's not per se a new process, it's just really providing for a renewal. The current process, a permit's issued, and then you're doing business. If you go out of business, we don't know it until a new business comes into that location. And so it's for tracking and for, emergency services wanting to see a renewal in place in case business processes did change, and then maybe fire needed to make additional requirements on the business or things like that.
Do they not have to get a business license already?
Yes, the business permit is already required.
So, but they don't have to have a business license.
It's not called a license in the City of Caldwell, they call it a permit. Yeah.
But it's just a one-time, currently it's a one-time.
Correct.
So this is amending it, so they have to renew it annually.
Right.
And what's the annual renewal fee? I'm having a hard time.
$25.
The high tech, gotta get used to it. Any other questions?
I have a question, Madam Chair. So with the violation in 9, it says $200 per day civil penalty. What if there's a situation where somebody's not aware that they need that permit? Would that not qualify, or how would that work? Would they get a warning?
Oh, yes, notice would be sent out that, hey, this is what's required in Caldwell, please apply for this business permit. The violation section is, we don't anticipate really ever having to use it, but obviously for any section of code, you need some sort of enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Why do business permits come to planning and zoning?
Probably because we verify land use and whether a business is allowed in a specific zone.
Okay.
So food trucks and all that, we need it too?
Food trucks and home occupations, temporary uses, they all have their own section of code. with their own provisions and requirements. So business permits are separate from those types of permits.
But if a food truck moves around, how do you track it? How does it-
Through a mobile food unit permit.
Because you were saying it was tracking for emergency services, but if they're moving around to different spots all the time,
Yeah,
what good does that do for
and so-
emergency service?
with mobile food units, they have to provide a schedule and
They do.
a location, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any collaboration with other organizations or entities that collect this type of information? Secretary of State, you have to renew business, entity, items with them, the county for different types of licenses.
There would be no collaboration with Caldwell specifically and those other entities. But yeah, and we use this information for economic development, Compass, you know, even just the average Joe says, well, I wanna shop local and, you know, I wanna know what types of upholstery businesses are in Caldwell.
Or no longer in Caldwell.
Or no longer in Caldwell, correct, excuse me.
I think where Ask's question is coming from is like, you have to remember to file Secretary of State renewal, you have to remember to file this renewal, you have to file this renewal, you have to remember, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to renew your license, there's just a lot of licenses to do the same business
Right,
for different entities.
jurisdictions, yeah.
How do the other municipalities around us manage city business permits?
As far as I know, they typically they require a business license.
With renewals every year?
That I don't know.
So, Debbie Ruth, Senior Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. The county, actually, since my experience is with the county, does have a business permit, process and a renewal process, and that's dependent upon a temporary use, a business permit use. Different land uses require renewal processes, and so they do that either yearly or biannually. What we were finding is that we only know when a business has gone out of business or moved to another location or something, when they apply for, or someone else applies for a business permit. And the challenge with that is that emergency services, again, they're trying to identify through inspection hazards or things that need to be fixed within the facility, you know, for life safety, code issues and those kind of things. And we found that renewing the permit and having to renew, you know, just do a simple check-in basically is a way for everyone to stay on top of the businesses that are here in Caldwell. We don't have a good listing of all those businesses that existed pre this permitting process, and so it'll start to allow us to pick up and make a clean list and hopefully be able to create a directory and utilize that better for economic development, for marketing, and those kind of things. The city council had a lot of questions during the workshop portion of this, and those things were addressed, which required that the ordinance be changed and updated and to capture some of the things they wanted. Some things they didn't want were taken out. And we feel like this is at least a starting point with this ordinance to start to be able to capture the data that we're looking for to more efficiently and effectively help these businesses, you know, through a marketing program, and also to help us keep track of where the city's economic businesses are and where other businesses may want to develop or be close to. So it's a good way for us to ensure that we're keeping abreast of, the transactional moves between businesses.
I have one more question. Has there been an issue with, emergency services not being involved with, other businesses and kind of spawning this change to this ordinance?
Yeah, so, one of the issues that we keep seeing come up from an emergency services standpoint, if they go in and do an additional inspection or something, is that many businesses, they have floor space and they go, oh, well, we can add this guy into our business, or we can add this little business into our floor space. And they end up morphing into more than what was initially permitted and then what was initially inspected for. And so, from an emergency services standpoint, there are things that businesses do after they've gotten their permit, and they make changes to the interior of their buildings, they add equipment, they add people, those kind of things that we're anticipating that this renewal process, because it's going to force them to answer a short questionnaire and provide information on what's still occurring in the structure.
So if a business, does not renew their license, or they don't disclose that they've done what you described, like they've had a couple other people.
Added tenants?
Yes. Then once the city learns of that violation, they would be assessed a 200 per day penalty until the license is updated. How is the penalty enforced or applied?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. So code enforcement, the intent is to bring them into compliance. The $200 fine or penalty is for essentially bad actors, those that continually, consistently, and refuse to comply. So it's, I don't see that being an option that we would use frivolously or with malice in any way. It's there. The attorneys have gone through this, rewritten sections of it, and put, so it's reviewed for that sort of legalese. And, but our intent usually with code enforcement is to work with the applicants to bring them into compliance.
Shouldn't that say that in this, instead of just straight to the $200 a day and guilty of a misdemeanor? I mean,
shall be, not maybe, or,
I kind of just seems like a bad time after everybody going through what they've gone through this year to be throwing another fee out, another regulation per se. I don't know, that's just my thoughts.
I had a question about the $100 initial fee. So first off, how did you come to that number particularly? And then the second part of that question is, does that go to the general budget, or does that go somewhere in particular to see if it helps out with like emergency services or the inspection department?
So the $100 fee is what the fee currently is on the permit and has been for several years. As far as where does that go goes into our funds, and essentially that $100 pays for staff time and the processing of those applications. It's not an exorbitant fee. It's not, out of line. We discussed many different fees as far as the renewal fee. and settled on the 25, because that's like, you know, people pay that for coffee in a couple days, so, it's not out of line for a business to have to pay that, you know, just to be compliant with the, code.
Thank you.
Yeah. But like with any fee, it only starts out like that, and then will this continually gradually go up?
You know,
Once you open that door,
yeah, the city tends to be extremely fiscally conscious and, probably charges less than most municipalities for any of our services. You know, and so, am I gonna say that it's never going to go up? It's not one of those, processes that, should take more time out of staff's time, so we couldn't justify to, council on our budgeting. We wouldn't be able to justify charging the applicant more money for time that we may not be spending on that permit.
And to change the fee, it has to come back to, it would be a change in the ordinance, correct?
Right, it is a change through the budgeting process.
From my perspective, I think it seems reasonable to have to renew your permit. I just think this violation language does not read the way you described it, being sort of, I mean, it says shall be, it seems, I mean,
Okay.
any person who violates any of the provisions of this section or permits any such violation or fails to comply with any other requirements, the group shall be subject to a $200 per day civil administrative and shall also be guilty of a misdemeanor. It doesn't seem like there's room for, you know,
So,
any person who beyond without meaningful resolution or without response or without, doesn't seem to qualify it in any way.
okay, so, Chairman Hunziker, what we will do is have the city attorneys look at that language and, modify if they feel that's the appropriate means of, addressing this violation language. And that'll be done before it would go to city council.
Okay, so we would approve it pending, a review of that,
Yeah,
that number 9?
yeah, that would be great. Or you can choose to not approve it, but, clearly your, concerns are, valid, and, you can condition it that be looked at by the city attorney for less stringent language.
Well, and I mean, my concern would be that you've got one person who's a bad actor, and you wanna charge them $200 a day, and there's one person that's working with you, and you don't, and you basically are gonna be treating them.
So arbitrary application.
So I think there's probably some way to
Okay,
give someone a way to resolve or something.
okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So I think we need a motion to close the public testimony, I think, is that where we are? I guess there is no public testimony. No one, oh please, I'm on the,
They've heard the recommendation.
recommendation, all right, can I have a motion?
Yeah, no, you could close public testimony, because essentially staff is considered public testimony.
Motion to close public testimony.
Second.
All those in favor of closing public testimony?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any discussion?
Madam Chair, I struggle, and actually probably at the beginning, now as I'm reflecting on this as a business owner, I'm experiencing this in a different light as I'm having a conversation than when I read it. But I definitely, the 2 points that were made is, it is another step. There's other licenses, like if you have a liquor license that you have to apply for every year with the city, so I'm already, myself and others in that case have, licenses to the city, Secretary of State, I mean, the county for different things, with district health if you offer food, and I feel like there's potentially a way to collaborate, or there's definitely ways to know this information, yeah, I guess those are my thoughts,
I agree with you.
I feel like when we make the, if we make the recommendation with the, change in the language, or pending that, we might wanna be specific, because I understand that they need the ability to penalize those who, are bad actors, but at the same time, could you say something like 30 days, or, you know, so, because, I mean, if there's a miscommunication, then they could be guilty, and I mean, of course, we don't wanna think that the city would do that, and I don't think they would, but 10 years from now, right, what could be the situation, what could be the scenario, things change.
Great.
All right.
I think we're over analyzing this, violation section. I think that's how all violation sections are written, because they have to be stringent. And it's incumbent upon these people to show that leniency that we're discussing, but if it didn't have the teeth, it wouldn't be a law, it wouldn't be a violation. So I think that's if we send it back to the attorneys, they're gonna come back and say, no, that's the way it's gotta be written. And so we have to pass the way it is. I mean, I think we can put in the condition, but I think we have to expect that maybe it's not gonna be changed. And it makes sense to me. I mean, I'm actually surprised that we, aren't asking for annual renewal in the past. I'm shocked, actually. But, I have no problem with it, the way it's written.
You don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that? I mean, I kind of agree. I feel like there's a lot of different places to renew your license, but I think it's kind of the process of renewing. You know, I had to do it once, I have to keep letting them know I'm still here. And so I don't know.
I don't have any
I'm
problem.
surprised that you don't have to do annual renewal either.
I don't have any problem with placing that condition, but I think we need to expect that there would be no change.
You just get more and more regulations though, and it just doesn't stop as a business owner, Even though I don't have a brick and mortar business, I have been doing a long time. I feel like they just keep needling it as a business owner constantly, so, to me, I look at it as just another regulated item.
All right, is there any other discussion? Are you ready for a motion? Let's see, hold on, let me make sure we can do it. Do we just, it looks like we just have a motion. We don't have to do findings of fact or any of that stuff on this. We can't, can we have, is there a motion?
I'll do the motion. Based on the testimony, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby recommends to the Caldwell City Council that case number 082004, Chapter 10 Business Permit, a request by the Planning and Zoning Department to amend Chapter 10, Article 2, Section 13, Paragraph 2, in the Caldwell City Code pertaining to the business permits, and to create in Chapter 10, Article 2, Section 16, business permits is approved with the condition of review of the violation section, Section 9, for the purpose of potential leniency.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Nelson and seconded by Commissioner,
Water.
to approve the, revised ordinance. Should we do a roll call vote?
Nelson,
Yes.
Water,
Yes.
Zamora,
No.
Harmon,
No,
Hunziker,
Yes. All right, the motion was approved, and, we'll go forward to city council then, correct?
Yes, and we will have the attorneys take a look at that for a grace period and leniency so that we, are applying that consistently with our, businesses in Caldwell.
Okay, all right. Next item, case number SUB 20P15, request by Providence Properties for approval of a preliminary plat for Mason Creek Grove subdivision, a low-density residential development on 35.47 acres located at the northeast corner of Middleton and Linden Road. The subject property, parcel R 34304, zone R1, Mason Creek Grove subdivision is proposed with 104 single-family lots, an average residential lot size of 8294 square feet and 21 common lots. All right, just staff up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we are here with a proposed subdivision development of Mason Creek Grove subdivision on a low-density parcel. The development is proposed and meets the requirements, dimensional standards, landscaping, pathway standards for low-density residential with 8,000 square foot lots. They have provided the right-of-way that is required for the Middleton corridor plan and the city's plan along Usick Road as well. There is adequate open space, actually more open space than necessary, and great connecting pathways, and the development is consistent with the requirements of the preliminary plat standards and requirements, and staff is recommending approval of this plan for Mason Creek Grove subdivision, and I'll stand for questions.
Is there any questions for staff?
I have one question, Madam Chair. So in reading the Kenyon Highway District, they had two different reports in there. And the first report, it appeared that there were certain things, I'm trying to find it again, that in their initial review that they required that wasn't in the initial drawing. I didn't necessarily see that in the second one, so can one assume that those things were remediated in between those two reports, or, yeah, those two reports?
So a little more background behind this. The developer brought forth, late in 2019, a development proposal with a comprehensive plan change and rezone, and they proposed commercial development in the southwest corner, along with medium density residential parcels and lot sizes, which would have required a comprehensive plan amendment in order to change that to R2 medium density residential. It was denied by the hearing examiner and the city council, and so the developer has brought back a plan that, is consistent with the zoning that already exists on the property of R1, low density residential. During that whole process, the developer worked really closely with staff, both engineering and the highway district and planning and zoning, to provide to us a preliminary plat that met the requirements for the R2 zoning, with all of the corridor plan changes, with all of the dedications for additional easements for the canals that have to be adjusted for the corridor plan, shifted the Ustick Road to the north to avoid having to completely remove a canal that is on the south side of Ustick Road. So the developer has been working very closely with staff and Canyon Highway District. So Chris Hopper's letter from Canyon Highway District 4, I left the initial Highway District comments in there because it had the roundabout locations, the adjustments, the requests for the right-of-way, and the additional easements along the, down along the north or the southwest corner where there was, and then added Chris Hopper's comment that everything had been addressed in the plat and he was fine with it as it was. So basically Canyon Highway District has signed off on this preliminary plat proposal because they met all of the conditions of the previous drawing and design at that time. They actually even removed an access point from Middleton Road, which is, more favorable to the corridor and that. So that's the context behind that.
Thank you.
I've seen the information of the out parcel, so is that, so this is not, nothing about this project is contingent on those out parcels or obtaining access to those, correct?
Correct. The parcel, the out parcel that is in the corner at Middleton and Ustick Road, that's owned by Canyon Highway District, down in the southwest corner. And then there's an Linden. Is it Linden? Sorry. Okay, Linden Road. I apologize for that. The out parcel that is in the northwest corner is a parcel that is not owned, or there's a separate property owner there. The developer has provided a 30-foot access and location to stub services in there, because when the corridor plan is completed, they will lose access to Middleton Road. If their access will have to come through into the development. But as far as the purchasing of that right-of-way and that, I think that may have already been in process with Canyon Highway and our engineering department.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, we have the applicant.
All right, good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Connor. Address is 701 South Allen Street, Meridian, Idaho, 83642, and I acknowledge that I've been sworn in. Thank you for having us in front of you tonight. As Mr. Root said, this is our second time with the public process with this project. The first time we went through with a more dense plan, we're going for a comprehensive plan amendment with commercial and smaller lots and access to Middleton Road. After a long debate, it was denied by council, and so we're here tonight with the plan that is within the existing zoning and, with no variances. So the project is 35 acres. It's currently zoned R1, low density residential. It's a base development with 125 total lots, 104 single-family lots. Average lot size over 8,000 square feet, which is the cutoff for low density residential. 21 common lots and almost 3 acres of open space. The location is the northeast corner of Linden and Middleton Road. And here's a close-up shot. It is kind of the last quarter, about 35 acres of almost a full quarter section master plan community of Mason Creek Landing. Everything integrates and connects with the existing Mason Creek Landing. We completed our first 2 phases of land development, and homes are, I believe, started construction already there. Here's a snapshot of the comprehensive plan map. The majority of the property is low density residential, and the zoning map showing the R1 zoning, which we are in compliance of tonight. Our preliminary plat, majority of the lots are between 62 and 71 feet wide, with some about 53 to 61 feet wide, and we have a few jumbo lots which are 72 feet wide and more. The green space is shown in green. Noble drain, because of code, does not allow us to count drainage as part of open space, though we are installing a pathway along the drain. We'll have a license agreement with Pioneer Irrigation District. So it will be an amenity, it will be an attraction, it will be usable open space, though it's not counted as that within code. Here's our proposed phasing plan. I want to kind of dive a little bit more into this and hopefully have a discussion about our phasing plan. It shows it pretty simple right now. All the phases are over 20 lots per Caldwell code. Each phase of development needs to be at least 20 buildable lots. So that is shown here. Our preferred phasing plan is shown here, which shows an amendment in the north west corner. So I was hoping to have some discussion about this after my presentation about kind of how we deal with this unique situation. So what's going on here is the noble drain creates what we call kind of like a natural effect separating the 2 sewer routes. So everything to the west of the noble drain sewers to the north to Mason Creek Landing, and that triangle in the northeast corner actually sewers the other direction. So in our phasing plan that we submitted to stay within zoning code, we have a section of lots along that west side of the noble drain that will have all of their infrastructure, the street, all the utility connections stubbed to their front door, but those lots actually won't come on until phase 4 because we needed to match that number of 20 or more lots per code. And so in this preferred phase map that I'm showing, there's only 11 buildable lots there because of the situation that we're in. I'm hoping that we can talk to you about this tonight and to City Council about potentially offering us a variance of this code to allow this phase development to occur on its own outside of the zoning code. In addition, it will develop at the exact same time as the parcel to the east of it to connect to the utility connections. Here's a map showing the integration within Mason Creek Landing. There's 3 points of vehicular pedestrian access. And here shows in red the pedestrian pathways that connect through our open space along the Noble Drain and eventually to the future Mason Creek Park in the northeast corner. Probably the #1 thing that we are requested for is having more pathways, more chance for people to jog and ride bikes and exercise their dogs, and so that's something that we really prioritized in this community. We also have one central tot lot located in the middle of the project. Here's some example of our homes for the 52 to 61 foot wide lots, and here's our larger lot plans. The one in the bottom right corner would be a plan that could be built on our larger 72 wide lots, which has the RV bay, so it's additional 10 feet, for that third car. All of our homes are built Energy Star rated, 100% Energy Star. We led the valley last year in the number of homes with this designation. Here's some shots of our interior. And lastly, this is our comprehensive, or our preliminary plat. So with that, I stand for any questions. I hope you'll see that our plan is within zoning code and that, we're trying to do everything we can to complete this master plan community of Mason Creek.
All right, thank you. Any questions or? I have a question. So the drain, does it, I'm sure you said it and I just missed it. How does it become an amenity? Do you cover, is it gonna be like filled in or
So
like a French drain?
no, it stays, it's still exposed, it
Okay.
runs during irrigation season. It's just gonna have a pathway along the west side of it, so
Okay.
it's gonna be, we can't plant any trees within that easement.
Okay.
It's an irrigation easement, so we can't plant trees. We'll have some bushes and some landscaping, maybe some, natural grasses, but really it's just gonna have a pathway that runs through it. It's gonna be a 5 or 6 foot running pathway, so it's just, another route for pedestrian.
And then will the property lines then, so the pathway would be between someone's back fence and the drain?
Correct.
So then there'd be fences along that so that kids couldn't stumble into the drain or
Correct.
whatever? Okay.
Yeah, and those fences are privacy fences, so really it's just a jogging path along the drain. Otherwise, it would just be there, and probably people would take their dogs back there anyway, and it would be just kind of like a place where, you know, you could walk around. We're trying to make it more of an amenity,
Yeah.
by adding the pathway and some landscaping.
And then, my other question is, so, can you kind of, so you all have developed this entire section, correct? Like the Mason Landing, is that what it's called? So those houses that come up right against these houses, there's like a little pie piece that's on that development currently that's undeveloped, obviously?
Yeah, I guess I should clarify, we've only built the first 2 phases. I can't, interesting. So we've only built the first 2 phases, so I think it's about 80 lots, or so, on the north part. So the triangular piece, are you talking about in the north?
Well, just like where it kind of goes, like where sort of this parcel that we're talking about kind of fits with the existing, the other plat.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
yes.
How,
Do you want to point to?
like, how are these lots gonna, they're all kind of weird shapes, like, is that gonna be?
So some of them will get, kind of cleaned up. All of our lots that we're showing here in front of you today are rectangular.
Okay.
The ones that are green, that are kind of those awkward shapes, that's green space. I see that there are some lot line adjustments that will need to happen as we get to those phases. Because whenever this plat was approved a couple years ago, this parcel wasn't thought of, and they thought maybe down the road it would be integrated with, but, so they wanted to leave those lines open, so if we needed to do an adjustment there, we can.
Okay. I guess I'm just looking at how it just tucks right into the other development, so it's not like you have some kind of bordering that you need buffers or whatever, it all kind of just fits right in there.
Right, everything, the intent is that it'll be a seamless transition.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to add to that, did I read that the HOA would all be one big HOA? Okay.
That's correct, yep, all the HOA would be of the same, any amenities between the two would be accessible by both.
Great.
Any other questions?
I have a question. and I think this might be for staff. Can I ask staff a question? My question is, you spoke about a variance for the phase construction, build out, and is that part of this that we're discussing tonight, or is that something different?
The applicant did not actually apply for a variance, but what he's requesting is that you could potentially, request to add a condition that, or at least this is how I'm thinking about this, is that you could add a condition that, the proposed phase 4 that it lies, north and east of the Noble Drain would be less than the required 20 lots for the phasing plan.
Okay, so we could add that as a condition.
Yeah, because basically, they probably should have applied for a variance, but it really doesn't fit the bulk and placement requirements for a variance. But, it is within your purview to add a condition that allows for that phase, or at least I believe it is. I mean, I'll check with legal, but I believe it's within your purview to, indicate that the, phase 4 can be less than the 20 lots, required by code.
What is the reason for the 20 lots? Is it just that there's enough to support like the infrastructure needs, or what's the reason for the 20 lots?
Yeah, it's a code requirement to ensure that the phases keep moving along. You know, if you didn't, they could do 5 lots and then do 5 lots and do 5 lots and keep their plat alive for, you know, on and on and on, versus actually completing the development.
But since it's really, because it's the last phase of the project, and that's probably not.
It's more about, in this particular case, so had there not been the Noble Drain, which is a clear division of, the lots, and it's an impediment to orderly development, in this case, because the 2 phases, or the phases that phase 4 actually, marry up to are in a different development. And they can't count that development lot as part of their phase for this lot. And so, strictly by code, they can't do less than 20. But you guys, as the hearing body, can recommend to city council that they allow for phase 4 to, be varied from the 20 lots to the, I think you said 11 lots, yeah, in phase 4.
I have a question so what is the plan with that out parcel? Which is kind of,
Are you talking about the long?
yeah, the long skinny one, it looks like there's a parking lot next to it, so I don't know.
So that sort of rhombus shape is, it's still an operating, business. We've spoken to the owner of that business, in hopes to potentially incorporate into the project. The talks are still ongoing, given some circumstances, with the owner. And so we're continuing to work with that. So the intent is that potentially that could, be maybe more multifamily lots. That's what you're seeing there, where it's like parking lot with the shapes. That was approved as part of the basic planning project. But we would like to incorporate it into the project, if and when it becomes available. The other out parcel in the southwest corner is Canyon Highway District for drainage only.
Okay.
And in the northwest corner, that's where we provided that driveway access.
I had a question, just generally speaking, could you give us an idea of the timeline for each phase? I know there's so many things that can throw that off, but.
Definitely. So we typically, for most of our projects, build 2 phases a year. So we like to pave in springtime or early summer, and then pave in fall, just because of weather, because of timing of how everything goes. So, but sometimes, if things are moving really quickly, we may develop 2 phases at once. These phases are between 32 and I think 40 lots in a phase, so I would probably think that these stay single phases, but there's potential that we may need lots or maybe high demand, so we could do 2. So, so with that itself, this would be enough for probably 2 years of build out, but it could be 3.5, it could be 3. And like I said before, that phase 4, if it stays at 11 buildable lots, we will definitely build it at the same time we build, I think it's phase 7 of Mason Creek Landing to the west of it. Because that's where the sewer's going, it's an easy route to continue, make it an efficient process of building that part.
Thank you.
So going back to the multifamily and the out parcel, is that also like in the comp plan, what is that little section?
That's a good question. I think that is, let me check. That is also low density. When it was Mason Creek, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but it looks like it's that light yellow. So that's low density residential.
So that would take a comp plan change.
So that would take a comp plan change, so it would probably be single family homes. Hopefully, there would be some precedent, they would see that it's probably most suitable to be, multifamily. It kind of depends on the temperature of how things are going. In the previous application, we were trying to follow with the comprehensive plan, saying that higher density should be along major corridors, which is the intent of that application. And so I would say the same thing for our parcel, that it's probably more suitable for a multifamily project.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Okay, we have one letter that, I'll read in for public testimony. We are one of the properties within this is from John and Christy Dyer, who I think is the owner of that out parcel. We are one of the properties within 300 feet of the proposed expansion of the Mason Creek Grove subdivision. We are number 2 on the map. We just want to make sure that we have a working farm on our property. Our concern with how we're going to be protected, we are now completely surrounded by the subdivision. We have large equipment coming and going in a small pasture to the west of our house. We wanted to know what the plans were moving forward, so we don't end up with others' trash, grass clippings, et cetera, coming onto our property, besides a 4 to 6 foot plastic fence. There's already talk of a heavier duty, taller fence to the east of our property. Hopefully that will be the case on the west side also. Thank you for your time and consideration. So, would you like to maybe respond to the fencing that?
So, to my understanding, per code, the fence between 2 residential uses needs to be 6 feet tall. And we are planning to do all vinyl fencing 6 feet tall, as it's built throughout the city. We would not restrict any sort of access that they currently have or anything like that. In fact, we're providing an additional substreet for access. And what was the other part of it? I don't recall any 8-foot fence on the east side as talk of that or anything like that. It's not a condition of that plat approval or any development agreement to my knowledge. Yeah, we actually, that's something we take a lot of pride in, that we try to have very clean subdivisions under construction. We police ourselves. It's really a lot of kind of the marketing and sales versus the construction side. You gotta keep it clean, you at it, keep it nice and presentable, making sure the construction traffic is, not tracking out dirt, not keeping all the trash on site, everything like that. So it's something that we're aware of. It's, often a complaint that people have and something that we, think is really important.
So it'll be a 6-foot privacy fence with no access between these homes along that
Correct.
boundary and the property.
Correct.
So they wouldn't have gate fences or whatever. And do the fences get put up prior to the construction starting, or is there some kind of construction fence?
No, usually along barriers between existing farms like that, we may put up, a construction fence that's more for kind of a border, and
Like a chain link fence, or they just temporarily?
yeah, a very temporary fence. The fence is usually the very last thing, the permanent fence, the last thing we do, because it has to be set to grade. But we do have some sort of, maybe it's a screening fence or, an orange, kind of just, this is the property line fence. So there will be an orange plastic fence or something like that that kind of stands out. Make sure that there's no debris or anything like that, to make sure that's.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions for staff before we close the public testimony, or? No? Okay, can I have a motion to close?
Motion to close the public testimony.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close public testimony. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, is there someone make a motion about the comprehensive plan analysis? I think that's next on the.
The Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission accepts the comprehensive plan components as listed below in sections 5.1 and 5.2.
He printed it out, so he's the second advantage.
I second. Alex.
Commissioner Nelson motioned and Commissioner Zamora seconded. All right. Commissioner Nelson, we're gonna rely on you to help us walk through, let's see, I'm on 5.
Do we need to vote on that?
Oh, all those in favor of the findings of fact?
Comprehensive
Comprehensive
plan
analysis?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you, okay, there. All right, how about findings of fact?
The Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Nelson motioned and Zamora seconded to findings of fact, all those in favor?
Aye.
Conclusions of law?
Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission has the authority to hear this case and recommend to the Caldwell City Council that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, the hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of Idaho Code and city ordinances.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Nelson, seconded by Zamora, all those in favor?
Aye.
Before you go to recommendations, is there any discussion? I kind of went the wrong order on that one.
I would, be in favor of, a condition for phase 4, less than 20 lots required by code to adjust that, or to allow for a condition of 11 lots. Based on the conversation that was had tonight.
Eleven buildable lots. Yeah, there's there's 14 total lots, 11 buildable lots. And
So we would add a condition to allow variance to provide space or to 11 buildable, 14 total lots.
You could actually just indicate that to allow phase 4 to, include the, lots north and east of the Noble Drain.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion or concerns or thoughts? Can I ask a question with the staff? Is it required to put up some kind of construction fencing?
No, I don't believe so. They wouldn't necessarily have to. I mean, the guy's got a pasture fence there now, but, you know, could you require it? You could require it, but, you know, the onus is upon them to keep that construction debris on their site and to not destroy the existing fencing that may be there in that neighbor's pasture or around his home and things. And so, if in fact they don't do their, you know, maintain that responsibility, then the property owner could call code enforcement and that be enforced upon, because it is in the code that they have to keep that construction debris on, you know, on their site.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, if, there anything else, if there's nothing else, I'll accept the motion, the recommendation.
Based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that case number SUB 20P15, a request by Providence Properties LLC for Mason Creek Grove subdivision, a 4-phase development containing 104 residential lots and 21 common lots, with an average gross lot size of 8,294 square feet on parcel R34304, 35.46 acres in Caldwell, is approved with the following conditions of approval. Conditions 10.2 through 10.17, with the addition of 10.18, which will allow for a variance for phase 4 to be built with less than the 20 lots required by current code, with 11 buildable lots, which is located northeast of the Noble Drain.
I will second. Zamora?
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Nelson, a second by Commissioner Zamora to approve the proposed project.
Nelson,
Yes.
Zamora,
Yes.
Waters,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Hunziker.
Yes. Okay. All right, motion's approved, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now a motion to adjourn, do I need a motion to adjourn? Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. I know, I'm gonna have to print my papers out next